Hi, and welcome to Fawns and Porter's Dream Big Block of the Month with Hoffman Fabrics. I'm your host, Jenny K. Parks. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website, jennykquilts.com, or you can find me on YouTube and Facebook. So be sure to check me out. All right, today we are going to make our checkerboard borders. They're going to go on the inside, as we build in layers. So they kind of go around the medallion. And this is a fun way to add a little something to your quilt. It's more interesting than just a plain border. I don't know about you, but like by the time I get to borders, I'm like, just strips, I don't care. I want to be done. But this is kind of a fun way to add something to the middle and make it look really nice. So here is a sample of the checkerboard border in the teal colorway. And I love this color. I have to tell you guys this funny story. So years ago, I was washing some fabric and I had washing jeans and stuff like that, and I had some fabric from Guatemala, hand-dyed stuff from Guatemala that was in there. Well, the Guatemalan fabric bled all over everything, and I pulled out jeans that were this color. I'm like, oh, I need the whole wardrobe. I want the whole wardrobe like this color, because it's just what really appeals to me. But that's a whole other story. You may love this colorway, and there's so many other ways that you could choose to go. So I love it. That's my favorite, but I'm sure you have your own. Okay, so first we're going to put some strips together, and there's a couple tricks for doing the strips to make sure they don't get wonky or kind of out of shape. So I'm just going to put these together for you and talk about that, kind of the different tricks as we go along here. I'm going to make, so we make two border sets, and I'm going to make this one here that has the lights on the outside. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to line them up and sew this one together. No big deal. You match the ends. You see here the ends don't quite match up. Match them as best as you can, on one side or the other. Just pick a side and match those up, and then we'll trim it off later. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal right now. So let's sew those together. And again, I don't pin. I line them up as I go along. I just find that that just works fine for me. But I like to say pin to your level of comfort. If you feel like you need more pins, by all means, pin away. Okay, let's come over here and press. We're going to press towards the dark. Now, these are very close in color. It almost doesn't, okay, one way or the other. Pick your way that you want to press and stick with it. So if you're going to press towards the lighter color, do that. If you're going to press towards the darker color in this situation, then do that way. I'm going to go from this direction here because this is a little tricky. We've talked before about getting any pleating, any folds. You don't want to get those in there. It's a really easy to do with this. So I like to do it this way, and I just keep kind of pressing out. Now there's a few things that can happen. You don't want to be overly aggressive. If you're angry, it's not the time to press. Because you're going to put curves in your straight edges, and we don't want to do that. So that's one of the things that can happen when you're doing strip sets, is that you press, and it's not a nice, sharp press. And that's the goal we're aiming for. If you're sewing this and you're finding out that things aren't matching, and this is what I do in the beginner classes too, we make a simple rail fence and they find out that the sizes aren't matching, you can look at the underneath and see, oh, maybe I didn't quite, maybe that doesn't measure 1/4 of an inch there, or a little bit off there, or something slid. But I like to look underneath to solve those kinds of problems. All right. So now we need our other one here, and I sewed in, this was my top, this is where I started sewing. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start sewing on this end this time around, on the opposite end. And the reason is because sometimes you can get a little curve in there. Just the pulling of the process through the machine can make your block, instead of be nice and straight, it can be kind of, and we want to avoid that one. So I'm going to line this up here, and I'm going to start sewing at this end. Now we're going to press it again towards the dark again. So what I want to create is a press where I've pressed into both sides. It's a little awkward. It might be a little awkward than what you're used to. Because I tend to do a strip and I can zip across it really quickly and have everything be just right, but this one is a little bit more awkward, and it's so important not to have those folds. If we have a fold or something in here, you are not going to be able to make these squares all line up, and that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish here. And I found too, as I was going along, I think I was trying to do it a little bit too quickly, that I got some folds. I got some little wrinkles where they didn't press over exactly. So I did go a second time, and I made sure I pressed everything really well from this side and from the other side, nice and flat. That's what you want to work with. Okay, so we just trim off those edges. Now I have two pieces. I have both of our units here, and you can see I've pressed towards the dark or towards that particular color. Doesn't matter which one you pick. So I press towards that, and then I'm going to match them together. Now, when I've done these before, you don't have to cut them out in one unit at a time, as I have done before. You don't have to do it that way. What I really like to do is to put these together, right sides together. Because I've pressed in opposite directions, these want to snuggle into each other, these seams. So they will snuggle real nicely. And you can kind of feel it. Yeah. Snuggle right in there. And then I'm going to cut both at the same time. And then another trick too. It's really cool. All right, so let me trim off this edge because I like to start with a nice clean edge. And I've been moving this around a little bit, so you know how that is. Drops on the floor, the cat walks on it or something, and you want to check it again. All right, so let me put this on here. I'm going to measure out the needed distance, and then you're just going to cut through both layers at the same time. And then this is exactly what I want to sew together. I just want to sew right along that line. And this, I have to be careful when I'm watching these on my machine that it doesn't flip up. And as I'm going here, I can see that, I can feel with my finger on it that that's nice and flat. Those are snuggled in nicely. It's going to be beautiful. And I have to say, I think at this point in the process, I'm so thankful that this fabric is the same on both sides and it's not directional. That has been a nice change of pace for me, I'll tell you. All right. Press it. And then I think at this point, if you just choose which way you're going to go, which way you're going to press, and keep it consistent all through the assembly of putting this together. So that's the units that make our borders. All right, so when you're laying this all out, we have our side borders and we have our bottom borders. It is very important that you pay attention to this, as I didn't exactly pay attention the first time. Pay attention to the order that they want you to put it in. So let's see, this is the bottom one. And I know because you start with the two darker squares on the bottom, they're on the outside, and the ones that go top side to side start with two light squares. And see, when you do that, look at that. Somebody all mathy figured this out. They'll go together and they'll match beautifully. So I just sewed this in sections, and then you put the sections together, and then you finish up to do the whole thing. So when we're ready to put that on, you're ready to put that on there, then you just match it up and sew it like you do any border. It's nice that these will snuggle into each other and that you don't have to worry about measurements because it's quite exact about what it needs to be. All right, so our next episode, we're going to talk about doing the center section and all the tricks and the tips that you need to get that done and have it look just right. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. This episode of Dream Big Block of the Month is brought to you by Hoffman Fabrics, made to inspire since 1924.